You're listening to Mentoring Developers. So these pairs, there are a couple of questions that come to my mind, and I think that somebody who's trying to implement pair programming in their organization, they might have those questions as well. Do you pair two equally skilled or equally experienced people, or should it be one senior, one junior? I see the senior-junior combination really very helpful, at least in, let's say that if you're really good at the front end and somebody's really good at maybe some other part of the system and you work together, hopefully you'll learn from each other and hopefully you'll see it, get a different perspective. Or it could be that, it doesn't matter, just pair anybody.
I think you do have to be thoughtful about it. I think that doing senior-junior pairing is one way to get pairing into your organization, because I think the benefits of that are more obvious than if you've got pairs of equal experience. Because, and as when I talk to junior developers, I often tell them to try and find a place where you will be pairing with more senior people. That said, I think that once you have a team that's doing pair programming, it's important to vary the relative skill levels of the people involved. Now, generally speaking, I switch pairs every day. So I work an entire day with one pair, and then we switch the next day. And so what that means is that I work with, depending on the size of the team, anywhere from 3 to 5 different people in a week. And when I am pairing with a developer that's more junior than I am, that is, in addition to engaging the pairing skills, it also engages the teaching skills, right? I have to think more carefully about how much I, quote unquote, drive, meaning how much I'm typing versus how much they're typing. Because a lot of times the best way for junior developers to learn how to do something is to do it themselves. However, it would be faster if I just did it. And so there is a line to walk there between getting the story done and making sure that the person you're pairing is learning. And so that is one set of skills. And then when I'm paired with someone who is at my experience level, it's a completely different feeling of pairing. A lot of times we can go extremely fast. We go much faster than I would go on my own. We go much faster than sort of the sum of the two of us working alone. That is sort of the ideal case, I think, on a product team, is to get everyone to that point where pair can actually produce more in one day than if you put two individuals working on separate things. And that feels amazing. Like, that is so much fun because, you can tell that you're going really fast and the code is really high quality and you're performing miracles, as it were, and you're finishing a lot of stuff. And that is the promise of pair programming. And that is really what people love about it in many cases. And so the teaching is definitely really important. But I think that you need to also make sure that your more senior developers are not always teaching, and that your more junior developers are not always in the learner's role. So they need to be paired with people, other juniors, and people that are, of different, sort of at different levels compared to them, because you don't want to get into a situation where someone is always the teacher and another person is always the learner, because that can lead to some very negative dynamics.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that personally, I would emphasize quality over quantity. I think you, at some level, at some point, you will produce more code than two individual developers by themselves. But I think the real benefit, the thing that you really get out of this system that you don't, when one person is doing the work by themselves, is the high quality, fewer bugs. It's just sloppy mistakes. You can totally avoid those because it's hard for two people to make obvious mistakes. They're both
exactly.
looking at it. So I think
if I try and do something, so there's two aspects of that too, right? One is that if I suggest something and I say it out loud, a lot of times once I say it out loud, I can already tell it's a bad idea, right? I might think about it and I wouldn't, if you look at some of the brain science around the difference between talking about something and just thinking about something, it's a different set of neural pathways when you vocalize an idea than it is when you're just thinking about an idea. And what that means is that sometimes something that seems like a great idea in your head, as soon as you say it out loud, you're like, oh, no, actually, let's not do that. And so there's that. You catch more of your stuff. This is the reason why, I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you and you're like, okay, I need help. I'm going to go explain my problem to somebody. And you explain to them the problem, and then as soon as you realize the answer.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even need them to tell you, right? And that's because of that factor. It's because that vocalizing an idea uses a different set of neural pathways and gives you access to different capabilities. So there's that. And the other part of it is that, as you said, right, like if I suggest something, and a lot of times my pair and I will have complementary, overlapping, but not completely overlapping technology experience. And so I can suggest something and they'll be like, oh no, I tried that on my last project and blah, blah, blah. And so we have the union of our experience to draw on. And one of the reasons that it gives us this speed is because, to be frank, we Google fewer things. The union of our knowledge is much greater than either of our knowledge individually. Yeah,
and generally, one of the pair is going to know a trick, maybe for Googling. I have done a lot of Googling in my time, right?
Yeah,
and so I've gotten really good at Googling for very specific things because there are certain switches, and Google is a very powerful. It's like a programming language in there, the search that you can do. So
yeah,
you can tailor your searches, but if you search for one thing over and over, you probably get pretty good at going through the results. So there are very few downsides, I think, to pair programming, except for that you need two people. If you can only afford one person, you're probably not going to do pair programming.
Right. Yeah, it definitely requires, it also requires a certain amount of faith, I will say, on the part of your product organization or your product person, if they're not a developer. Because you're telling them, okay, you could be working on two different things at once, but instead we're only going to work on one thing at a time. And so they have to sort of trust that is going to give them a better outcome than if they have two people working on different things alone. And it can be a hard sell for that reason, especially to folks that aren't programmers. But as you said, often it's good to talk about it in terms of the quality aspect of the fact that things that I would do on my own, I would be possibly embarrassed to do in front of another person, right? Like shortcuts that I might take if I'm tired and it's the end of the day, I might not do it if there's someone sitting there watching me, right? And so I think that for me, it's a good way to supplement my own self-discipline when it comes to doing the right thing, building whatever that means, right? Building the higher quality code or even just, having someone else to be like, hey, I don't think we understand this well enough. Let's go ask the product person what they actually are trying to get at here. And you'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. If you hadn't suggested that and I was here on my own, I might have just plowed away on this for another 5 hours. And so I think it just makes it much easier for us to do the right thing as opposed to just writing the code.
Yeah, just getting it done. Sometimes that's what you have to do. But when you're
absolutely.
Working as a pair, chances are that you'll write better quality code. Thank you so much for listening.
For show notes and transcripts, visit us at mentoringdevelopers.com.